Today it is my pleasure to host a special guest from faraway Australia, New Zealand, Dr. Cherry Wu and Rob England. Warm welcome to you guys.
Thank you.
Hello.
This is personally my first time online with Cherry and Rob, but I was watching your email group and was chasing you on social media, so I'm kind of got inspired to invite you. And the first question, we of course can offer this convenient time slot because the Teal unicorns are visiting Europe. We tried to set it up when they were back in Australia. It was not that easy.
New Zealand, yeah.
New Zealand, yes. So my first question is, like, what brings you here to Europe?
So it's a holiday thinly disguised as work, I think would be the fair way to describe it. So Cherry has a master's degree from Potsdam. And so I guess the core motive was for Cherry to revisit Germany and some of her old haunts, and I've never seen most of Europe, so it's an opportunity for me to see a bunch of countries for the first time. And certainly Cherry's been to all of them before, but yeah, so it was to go back to Potsdam and visit around the region and have an opportunity to meet with some people here and to attend the SR Vision conference in Utrecht a week or so ago, and we did a keynote speech there.
And also we work for yesterday, we just have a master class for the ITSMF Belgium. So we have fun.
Yeah, so we were in Brussels yesterday talking to them about new ways of working. Tomorrow we go home. We're in Frankfurt right now, and we'll head to the airport tomorrow and be home for really the first time in 4 months, basically. So we're ready for a bit of time with the garden now.
Right. So yeah, by the way, when I first saw the name of the conference, SR Vision, my first connotation was like with Stevie Ray Vaughan, the guitarist.
Much less interesting, yes. So IT service management, which is my background originally is in IT practices until I met Cherry, and I was already looking at business agility and moving into that domain, and Cherry has this epic background in business consulting, so we put our heads together and created the Teal Unicorn brand.
He is a brain, he is a beauty, you know.
I'm sitting next to Dr. Cherry Wu, so you know that's not true at all.
Awesome. Yeah, it was. I made this mistake originally, like in the invite title said like, let's welcome Teal Unicorns, and then I realized, hey, it's a mistake, but actually it sounds good. So there are two unicorns.
Yeah, we live an unusual life, which is a good thing. We have a wonderful life commuting back and forward between Vietnam and New Zealand and wandering off to other places and working from anywhere. We have a caravan we work from in New Zealand sometimes, from exotic locations. We have I think quite a futuristic lifestyle.
Cool. I hope we'll find a bit of the reflection of your lifestyle in today's ideas and talk. So is this your like first chance to do the kind of old school face-to-face after the COVID pandemic?
No, we do quite a bit in Vietnam from last year. And in Wellington, we also have some event that we have face to face, not just this time.
It's the first time to have a lanyard around our neck and be in a formal conference since lockdown. But we've been to Vietnam twice already since lockdown, and done and had some face to faces back home as well.
I wonder.
But yeah, it was the first kind of proper conference, which was quite exciting.
Yeah, I wonder how it feels actually, because my first face-to-face big event conference will be in like 2 months' time, and this really will be like my first time to meet people after a really long break. So I'm a bit nervous.
Oh, it's good because you get a bit jaded about conferences after a while, just another conference. And so after a 3-year break, it's actually quite exciting to get back to a conference again.
Good. So there is hope. Awesome. No, I'm really like I'm a face-to-face guy, so I really miss these days. So okay, so maybe just building on what you said about your life between New Zealand and Vietnam. I just, I think it will be very interesting for us here in Europe to really ask you about like your feelings and observation, like a wide open question about like the current state of business in Australia and Asia, like on a very high level, how Agile is doing there, or how is project management doing, and how is Teal doing there? What's hot? What's emerging? What's passé? If you could, if you if you could give us some hints.
I think I helped found the Business Agility Institute in Wellington 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, just before lockdown, must be 4 years ago. And Cherry founded it in Vietnam. So there wasn't any active business agility entity in either country before that. New Zealand sort of is ticking along. There's lots of businesses being agile, certainly capital A agile in software, and there are organizations talking about being agile at an organizational level. Teal's pretty well unheard of. I think there's a lot more activity around that in Europe. And then in Vietnam, I think there's just us, really.
Yeah. In Vietnam, just us talking about the new way of working and managing, especially in business agility. That is quite new concept to the whole community. People talking about agile, but not really. I mean, agile in terms of capital A, the method in IT, but I don't think that there's so many people applying it like good enough to say that there's communities of there.
So it's not certainly not any further ahead than Europe. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of in terms of new ways of working and managing, I was surprised when attending the conference in the Utrecht conference and also the IT SMF crowd. I realized that a lot of methodologies or thinking is people have no idea. It's too, lots of people, including managers, including consultants, all over the place. They just quite new to all those concepts. That surprised me.
Yeah, we tend, because we are immersed in it, we write books about it, and we work with our clients all the time on these ideas. I think we lose sight a bit sometimes of just how pioneering we are
Mhm.
on this. Like, so in social media, we're connected to people who think likewise, you know, and like yourself, you know, I mean, so the communities we talk to in social media and at work are all talking about agility and Teal and humanocracy and complex systems thinking and yeah. And so we sometimes lose sight of the fact that that's a very small minority of the human race that are talking about these things.
Right. Okay, let's park it here. Hopefully we'll spend a bit more time on this, like, because yeah, in Europe it's like, of course, the Netherlands, and this is always the source of great ideas, and there's this, I think there's this overwhelming feeling in the agile community that as long as we have built the knowledge and experience, like the adoption itself, especially in big corporations, it's really struggling, right? So this is, and there is like some kind of productivity plateau established for agile ways of working, but it's, on the other hand, there's a lot of people who are a bit disappointed with this level of the productivity plateau. They expected more to inspire the big corporations, but let's park it. Yeah.
Well, I think we think we've cracked the secret on that, and we have a lot of success, remarkable success with organisations large and small. So we think we know what the problem is, absolutely, and have the evidence to back that up.
Okay, and you'll be talking about it tonight, right?
Yeah, it's a big claim, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Oh, okay. I guess, yeah, lots of people try to answer this question, right? So it's very interesting to hear you share your perspective. Okay, one more thing I wanted to just mention in this kind of warm-up round is something, the one statement of yours, Rob, that caught my attention. I think it was in your episode of the podcast you recorded. Can't remember which one it was, but this was some agility veteran, very cool podcast. And you just said one sentence there about what's going on with SAFe, and your interpretation of was the story of SAFe, and you said there is nothing wrong with SAFe until it gets into the hands of bureaucrats. And actually it was kind of enlightening for me, like because I think you nailed it down.
There's nothing wrong with any of these frameworks till they get in the hands of the bureaucrats. So one of the Eichel was saying, so one of the books that really inspires us is Humanocracy, which we'll show it at the end. And humanocracy is defined as the opposite of bureaucracy, that it's bureaucracy that poisons organizations, and it's humanocracy that lifts us out of it. And so that was a book that inspired us a lot in our work. Yeah, absolutely. Shall we run through a couple of slides and define some terms, and then I'll go through them real quick, and then
Awesome.
we
Yes.
can put some in.
Fantastic. You see, I thought this would come up like naturally, your slides.
Yeah, no, there we go. So I'm sharing some slides now. And this is the symbol that we use for open. So, but I'll get to that in just a minute. This is a quote that I find myself using all the time. So McChrystal wrote the book Team of Teams about the US deployment to Afghanistan and how they had to change how they work entirely in the face of the Taliban. And this book is a business book, and it's really was very influential on me as well. And he said that the 21st century is a different game with different rules. The pursuit of efficiency, it's not the thing. Being effective in today's world is not about optimizing for a known set of variables. It's about responsiveness to a constantly changing environment. So adaptability, not efficiency, must become our central concept. And that's a complete inversion of 20th century management. So a lot of the ideas we deal with are complete inversions of conventional ways of managing. And I think he nails it exactly here. Because this is a different century and the game is a different game. And I think we can, there's Cherry, one of the last people through Singapore airport before lockdown, this vast empty airport. So, you know, I like summing it up in that phrase, what got you here won't get you there. Things that worked for us in the 20th century are all premised on stable, steadily growing work environments. And the 21st century is not that at all. So we are Teal Unicorn, Dr. Vu, who you can find on Twitter there, and me, used to be a blogger in the IT world. And if you haven't guessed yet, we're partners in life and work. Happily together for nearly 7 years now, 24/7, work all the time. Still happy about it, I think.
So far, so good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And this is Unique, our little mascot, the Teal Unicorn. Yeah. So yeah, we do wild stuff, and I won't talk about this in detail today, but we get numbers that are quite extraordinary working with big clothing. I'm in a Garco 10 shirt again today. This shirt's made by Garment Company Number 10 of Vietnam. And we work with one of the biggest banks in Vietnam, with one of the biggest finance companies, and we work with tea shops with 10 employees. I mean, we work. So I don't think we need to label these. You can just look at those sort of numbers and say, this is not 10% improvement. This is.
Yeah, just proof that the variety of the industry that we work in, and also the size of our companies, and also the nature of the owners, for example, it's all produce very good number with a new way of working and managing. So, you know, it's not crazy. It works, and it can work everywhere, I believe.
So was the nature of your kind of recipes for success, was it coming from the same angle and like, you know, applying agile principles, or was it different from case to case?
Principles are the same, the solutions are all different, which should be true of approaching any methodology that people who try and apply standard blueprints like the big consultancies do. They're always doomed to failure, that everything's customized to the individual situation. In fact, the work comes out of the people, so it's always going to be different in each place. Let's have a look. So just some quick terms. The word agile gets used all around the world, but we decided that it's overused and overworked. It's too much to ask about words. So we looked around for a better word and we couldn't find one, and we've started, well, we did find one. We found the word open, which is coming up, like you can see here, in all sorts of contexts. We're members of the Open Leadership Network. We're inspired by the open space methodology. So, you know, I think we got the word open from there, but it comes up in language all the time, and we think it's a better word for work than agile is. So we've got a book called Open Work that'll come out one of these days when we get it finished. But we wrote a book called The Agile Manager when we were still using the word agile rather than open, which is very popular, and it's also available in Vietnamese for those of you who can read Vietnamese. It's out. So open work is the language that we use to talk about work. And so we're talking about changing the way we work in these sort of conceptual ways of open, in the sense of opening it like a flower, letting the light in, making room, open as in making it roomier, opening as in being transparent and exposing the workings of the system, open as in inviting people in, and open futures. Right? You see, open means a lot of things conceptually to think about an organization, yeah, when you look at that sort of language. And but there are much more concrete ideas there that people will have possibly heard of. As Cherry said, we're starting to get surprised about how much people haven't heard of some of these terms. But when we're talking about open work, these are the sort of ideas that are flowing around the world at the moment. We're not inventing stuff. These are the sort of ideas that are around the world that you could call open work. Making work transparent, the idea of slack and creating headroom, diversity and inclusion of people, and so on, right? Value flow, humanocracy that I mentioned there, I'll show you that book, and psychological safety is talked about a lot. These are the sort of concepts that are in play that we're talking about and we're using when we say open work, yeah? So I hope at least most of those are, you know, people have at least heard of and read about on LinkedIn or whatever, have some familiarity. So to sum up all of that in work, another term that we use a lot is human systems adaptability. So all those ideas can be sort of gathered together into this idea of these three areas: the humanistic side, the systems side, understanding complexity and flow, and the adaptability bit that McChrystal talked about in that quote before, that it, creating the agility and the resilience so that our organization can be adaptable into the future. Forgive me, I'm going quite fast here, and so these are the sort of things that, again, people talk about around the planet. None of these are our invention. That are the kind of the bodies of knowledge or the topics that are already out there in these better ways of working that people use. Yeah. And again, I hope most of those are familiar, at least at an awareness level, to people. So we draw on all of these sort of conceptual ideas in the work we do. And then one of the key insights that I think we had is that, as you said, there's a lot of failure in agile, in the implementation of it in organization. I like your word disappointment, right? And equally, I used to work in the ITIL world, and man, there's a lot of disappointment in implementing ITIL in IT. So one of the big insights we had was that you can't change how you work until you change how you manage the work. And most of the work that we do with clients is at the management level. And we're very lucky that Cherry has the prestige and the networks and the influence in Vietnam to be able to have credibility in the C-suite, having conversations with the chief executives and the board of directors and so on in these organizations, aren't you? And
even you get to the sea level, it's still hard, you know.
it's not a magic, doesn't it just open the door, but it helps. It helps.
You get the support from the executives. You still feel like changing an organization. It's not an easy job at all.
No.
Yeah.
So it's still hard work, but that's one of our key differentiators, I think, is that we do get that sort of access usually, and it's usually helpful. It's interesting that the majority of them, not all, but the majority are women. So
it's about, I would say, 85% of our clients, they are women.
The chiefs are women, and they're self-selecting. We don't market, we don't sell, they come to us. So it's people who are at least initially interested in these ideas. That's the second part of the reason that we are successful. Yeah, so, but this is key. This is key, that a lot of these failures, in fact, I believe all the failures that I've seen with implementing, I mean, that's the wrong word as well, these better new ways of working, like Agile and ITIL and who knows, and SAFe and so on, they fail because the organization didn't change how they manage enough, or quite often they didn't change how they manage at all. That they tell everybody to work differently, and then they don't change how they manage the work at all, which makes it impossible for people to change how they work. So we think this is the critical key to unlocking better ways of working, is to focus on the management and changing how the workers are managed and how the managers are managed, right up to the governance of the organization. That's what unlocks better ways of working.
It's also, I think, one of the key elements is that the people who do the work plan the change and then do all the change, not what we do or for them, or the manager or CEO or the top leader want them to do. So it have to become from them, have to come from them, and not do it for them or ask them to do. So that's, it's a different story.
I mean, that's the third element, is that once we've coached the management and done some training and some convincing, the one of the big ways that we change how they manage is to empower people, or a better word is liberate people, so that let the people doing the work design the work, and let the improvements come out of the people, not be done to the people as a impositional power exercise from above, because that's always going to fail, or at least be disappointing. Whereas if the people don't resist their own ideas, so if you liberate people to want to improve the work and help them to improve the work and give them the authority to do their own job, as Dan Mezek puts it, which is beautiful. If you authorize people to actually do the work, then that's what unlocks better ways of working, quite relatively easily.
Yeah.
Relatively easily. So the second book we wrote was a sort of political manifesto about this stuff. The first one's the how. This is more the why, and the political ideas around why we need open management and what it means. Also available in Vietnamese. So we've translated all of these into Vietnamese, and I'm embarrassed to say they're much bigger sellers in Vietnamese than they are in English. They're hugely popular books in Vietnam.
It sold out after 1 month published, so it's really good.
Into several reprints now on both those books. So what do we mean by open management? We mean it can be summed up in these 4 words. Invitation. Management is invitational. That is, you can't tell knowledge workers what to do, period. You can tell transactional workers, as we call them, what to do. Someone who just does something over a task over and over. But you cannot tell knowledge workers what to do. You can only invite them to work. They have to want to do what you're doing, or forget it. It's not going to happen. So you have to invite them into doing the work, and that means inverting the whole pyramid. We'll talk about that. And then the second thing is management needs to be inclusive, meaning open and transparent and including people in the decision-making process. It has to be inverted, which I've got a picture of in a minute, and transparent. So yeah, so what we mean by all that is that the hierarchy of the power hierarchy of the organization shouldn't sit on top of the value work, the people actually doing something, as a burden for them to carry around. It should be a structure that sits underneath the value work, holding it up and supporting it. And one of our clients, a watch company in Vietnam, they don't call their people managers, they call them supporters, which I think is beautiful.
There's no managers in the whole system. There's only people who have the skills and to be coached or to, they don't do the value work, but they have people with skills and supported. So they call them supporters, but no manager at all.
So this is what we mean by open management. And there are ideas that float around the world again at the moment, people are talking about, which all play into what we're talking about here. Transformational leadership, you can look that up, servant leadership, or we prefer to say servant manager, but people talk about servant leadership, fair process, and sociocracy and holacracy and Camelot and all these sort of democratic power systems that people are experimenting with around the world. That's all the kind of thing we talk about when we're talking about open management. And so these are the sort of principles that we promote in the organization. And I won't go through all of them in detail, but some of them will be familiar and some of them will be deeply challenging to people who have worked within 20th century management systems all their lives. We always watch people trying to get their head around it. The workshop yesterday was quite fun. There were a few people really bending their brains to understand how success is achieved through failure. Failure is a normal part of work. It's not a punishable offence, or just the ideas of trusting people, moving to a culture where you don't have to tell people in order to get anything done. So that's some of the sort of ideas that are behind. And so that book, Humanocracy, Hamill defined the purpose of a company to be to maximize human contribution. Or another way of putting it is that organizations exist so that we can be better together than we would be apart. And so this is modern thinking. This is, I mean, the idea has been around forever, but this is gaining traction as the thinking. We had Friedmanism came after the Second World War, and Goldratt wrote The goal is to make money. Friedman preached greed is good, that the organization exists to enrich the owners. That is the purpose of the organization. And that's known as shareholder capitalism, and that's in its dying throes. It's fighting back now, but it's definitely in its dying throes around the world, thankfully. And Drucker talked about an organization. The purpose of an organization is to create a customer. And who was it in Pursuit of Excellence? I always forget his name. Tom Peters. These people talked about customer-centric organization and customer first. And now there's talk of stakeholder capitalism, ESG, and values over value, and organizations that should put society and the planet first and deliver value to all stakeholders in the organization. And we think that employee first is actually in advance of that. It's another step forward to say that organizations should exist to allow their people to flourish, to maximize the value of the employees of the organization. And from that will flow all the other things. From that will flow, you know, stakeholder value and customer focus and money for the shareholders. So that's a big part of our thinking, is humanocracy and humanistics and putting the employees first. And we're also doing a bit of work on open IT to wrap that into an IT context, but that's not the topic for today. But people who are curious can think about that. So you can find stuff on Teal Unicorn. We have a page talking about the open concept. We have a page talking about those success stories of ours. We have a page talking about the open IT project and these ideas in an IT context, and more, lots of other ones. And there's a bunch of books that we would recommend that you read, and of course a couple from us as well. But there's some wonderful books out there as well that people can dig into to understand more of these ideas. But these are some of the ones that have been heavily influential on us. And that, my friends, is a very quick summation of the basic things that drive us. Another thing you'll find on that Teal Unicorn website is our secret formula. So it's so secret that we put it on the internet. So we do talk about our approach to work and how we engage with the client and the key things that we do to focus on the management, to make work visible early on. We have another book coming out soon called Working Naked, which is all about making work visible.
Not naked employees running around.
Yeah, no nudity involved.
No nudity. Any
Awesome.
questions?
Thank you. No, it was. There was lots of concepts and ideas.
It's a roller coaster ride, isn't it?
I do have my questions, but I'll let the audience start the question round, questions answers. If
where to begin?
If I may start.
please, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the client. So it's like people search for you for your new approach to work. Is that what I like understand from your what you said, that there is a need for a new approach? Yes. So you like how your marketing looks like. How do you find clients, or they find you? It's enough. Like
No, normally just word of mouth.
And social media. Cherry's very active on Facebook, which is still the hub in Vietnam for people. So initially, the very early clients in Vietnam came to us through Facebook. And now a lot of it is just word of mouth being passed on between bosses. And the book occasionally gets passed around. Cherry does some public training at time that people will recommend others go to, and they'll.
We literally never spend for marketing. We don't spend money on marketing.
Printing the books. I put that on in our accounts as marketing when we print books to give away. That's about it. Yeah.
Okay,
They
so
don't
another
advertise.
question. What was what is the biggest trouble for your clients to go through while you showing them this way of working? Which is most how do you say what is the most problematic for them
What's
to
compelling
catch
them? Yeah.
catch?
Mm.
The new idea, you mean?
Well, yeah. Some of them are. Sometimes they are actually up against the wall, aren't they? Some of them can see a bad future coming.
Yeah. Lots of people, lots of our clients, they know that they're facing challenges. If they don't change, they will may not exist anymore in the near future. So the main thing, some others, they realize that they are no more produce good results enough, then they realize that it's time to change. And some people are brave enough to say, let's try, we have nothing to lose. But I guess that your question is that the most challenge to them when they get the new concept, right? The new ideas of new way of working. In that case, I think they are more or less the same. The challenge is that they have to unlearn the thing that they already know, the old way. Like punish people when they make mistakes, or even
Or shout at people as a basic behavior of management.
yeah, or stop shouting, or stop telling people what to do, start ordering people around, or uh, changing the way they pay. In like incentives is one thing, like instead of paying individual incentive and make it secret to everyone, you make it open, you make it transparent, you make it a group or companies share, not just individual.
And stop telling people what to do and start listening to what people want to do.
Yeah. So it's more, the challenge is how to help the leaders and managers change their behavior, unlearn and relearn. That's the most challenging. Some people get it, when you explain to them, and when they see enough, they understand. But to change the behavior is hard, right? To anyone, it's a difference between knowing, understanding, and doing, right? It's very difficult.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's the difference between knowing you have to lose weight and actually managing to lose weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they come to us for all sorts of reasons, but they all struggle with the same things once they do. Sometimes they come to us for really enlightened reasons, like I'm going to retire soon and I want to leave a happy company was one. And others come to us driven by pure greed. I hear what you do makes lots of money. Show me the secret. And everything in between.
Yeah. And so, in order to help the people who first trying a new way, I normally put them in a group, like group of CEO or group of managers. So but people come from different levels. Someone already tried something, someone already success, someone's just totally new. So they even call, like, it's a group of people crying together. Everyone went through the same pattern, group of people crying and clean the tear together.
Sherry has this wonderful formula that we've been using of a weekly coaching session of a couple of hours a week. You can get executives to commit to a weekly coaching of a couple of hours a week. And yes, we make that sometimes invitation only, but across multiple organizations, or sometimes public, that people can come to. And so yeah, it cross fertilizes. Sherry said they get the reassurance of talking to someone who's further down the journey than they are and who says to them, yeah, this stuff works. And that unlocks a lot of them to be willing to start the journey. But they still have to be curious enough to somehow end up on your coaching stuff.
Yeah, but normally I see that people helping each other a lot because they all went through the same journey. So if they help each other more than me. Yeah.
There's one lady said that she started saying things the first time she came and everyone else started laughing and she got a bit upset, like, why are you all laughing? And they said, because you sound just like us on our first coaching session, you know. You won't be talking like that in a few weeks' time, you know.
It's really nice. Like this
Thank you.
exchange of experiences, really nice. Like giving them their peers as their mirrors, right? So
What does good look like is very powerful if it's going to another or hearing from another organization or hearing from a peer within your own organization, or the weakest one is reading about it on the internet in a book, but it still helps. Corporate Rebels have been very active for years. That's a website interviewing people all around the planet who are doing really interesting new ways of working. And those books I referenced, you know, they all have case studies in them. So that gives people a little bit of faith in these things, but it's nowhere near as powerful as hearing it out of somebody's mouth.
So we have communities, business agility communities about, up to now, it's about almost 10,000 CEOs and managers. So they all share the story that they apply and how it changed and the results and what difficulties they got when they apply the new ways, and you know, lots of storytelling. And also through webinar, I invited people to come to talk about their journeys, and you know, people here. So I have YouTube channels. Yeah, so people can watch it. Sometimes I deliver free training for them.
The language barrier is a challenge for us outside of Vietnam, of course. So English is quite low in Vietnam, and so even when a CEO does speak pretty good English, they're still shy, they're embarrassed about it, and not eager to talk in English. Most it's quite hard for us to get people to talk in English, right? So generally, our case studies, most of them are me capturing stuff that was written in Vietnamese and putting it through Google Translation and getting Cherry to fix it up and you know, turning it into stuff that we can share more widely. But there's one video people talking in English, I think one or two.
there's one thing I need to ask you, because there's, you know, what you're talking about. It's like when I think about these is like resistance and unstickiness of agile transformations. There's two levels. Like one thing is like the operational mistakes, right? Which is which would include stuff like, you know, management mindset, and there needs to be clearly the change on this level, right? But then even if you cross this this obstacle and really are able to implement this inverted kind of management pyramid, as you saw in this picture, right? So that they are supporters, not the managers. There is like another level turns up, which is like residual obstacles, which is not about, you know, the internals of the companies, but it's about the externals of companies, which means like the whole economic systems in which they are all embedded, like all the managers, all companies are embedded in the system. So, and for me, like, as long, of course, as many people talk about the leadership, the proper leadership and the management, you know, style, and as it is for me more like a necessary condition, right? But still not for me, it's still not like the
Sufficient condition.
the sufficient condition. Thank you. Yes. So I'm kind of mentally caught up in this frame that in this agent arena fitting, you know. So we've got companies that want to play like football on a tennis pitch, right? It's like we introducing agility until it's like, you know, playing tennis on the football pitch, which is like maybe different game, right? So if without changing the external environment, right, how can we really make them
Are they really that strong? I mean, there's a few regulatory things that affect, but for a whole organization to behave differently.
I think the key here is to make sure that everyone in an organization involved in the changing process, and they are invited to be to participate and to make normally we create a picture, we organize like event of Teal space for people to come and to draw their own picture of the whole organization, what the problem, who they want to be, what the future look like, and blah blah. So even
is there much outside the organization that stops them doing that?
No, I don't think that's the problem. And even if for the inside people need to know the problem, need to understand the situation and come up with the situation together. They will implement it one by one. But is the other in like let's say if the outside organization, for example, your suppliers or your partners work differently, then how can they match with the new way? So normally when I have any organization, I will invite the partner or third parties or suppliers to come and to see, invite them to join the change. Like for example, how do you want us to serve you better? They have an incredible insight, and like if they, for example, I work with courier companies, so they have in parcel, they deliver parcel all over the world. So they have a partner in Japan, in UK, in New Zealand, and in everywhere. So I invite them to come together and draw a value stream mapping with us. See what is your part and what can we do in our part to make the flow better, and what you can improve to make the part of flow better. So all together we all see it, and we all come together and solve the problem. They're not outside the ecosystem, because if we change inside with the outside, they maintain the same, then it's really not helpful very much. That's how we work.
So the middle bit in there was that when you change how you manage, the managers don't tell people how to change how they work. By changing how you manage, you empower people, you liberate people to figure it out for themselves. Let the people doing the work design the work. And so because the change is coming from the coalface, these are the people who interface with everything outside the organization on a daily basis. So the ones who are solutioneering to new ways of working are the ones who work with the suppliers, with the partners, with the regulators. Talk to these people and know what is needed, and as we say, hopefully draw them into the conversation to be part of the change. I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but is that what you were thinking about when you said there are impediments outside the organization?
We can't hear you.
I think you're on mute, man. Are you on mute?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So Yeah, you answered this part regarding the barriers between like external and parties and collaborators, vendors. That is, I fully agree. There mustn't be any borders and barriers across, right? But there is also the second part is that you mentioned about this, you know, this shareholder capitalism and this kind of stuff, and this really it's like there's no influence that, you know, employees can bring to this problem, right? It needs to be, this is clearly like the constraint of the bigger system that the company is embedded in, right? So
Well, there's two parts to that. One is that ultimately the world's not going to change until shareholders do. Ultimately, the world's not going to change until the owners of organizations grow some value. And we're seeing that with organizations like BlackRock and so on, the ESG, and there are a number of shareholders who are starting to be enlightened shareholders and so more open to the kind of thing. That's the first piece. I think the second piece is that some of your CEOs do actually have to go and do some serious selling to the owners to say, let me do this, don't they? They have to draw on their own brownie points, their own credit with the owners to say, you have to trust me to try this. But we've seen that situation a few times.
Yes, the companies that we work currently, that the CEO, the new CEO, wanted to implement, to change the system, to change everything.
After we've done all the good work.
Yeah, but the owner doesn't want to. So the CEO said, look, if you trust me and you give me the job, now you have to trust me to do good things. And if you don't trust me, then take it back. So it's put him in the situation that you have to. And we yes, and for 2 months, we start from last month. Yep, we came back to Vietnam and helped them directly. They did a lot of change in the system and make the whole system much very lean in terms of the flows, and also they changed a lot of policy to deal with for people and internal and external as well. So the chairman finally, he said, all right, it sounds like so far so good, so all right. But I mean, normally we have to prove we have to get some very good number.
Show me the money.
Very good number in the short term.
We do unlock a lot of money.
Yes.
So the shareholders, once
they see the money, you have to prove that it works. If the system's better, if the people are getting better, if the policy is better, the result have to be better. Is that right? If there's yeah. So we often have to produce some results to prove that it works.
So our motto is better results, better lives, better society. So we do deliver better results. We have to in order to survive. Yeah.
Right, awesome.
Because
Thank you.
No matter how much they trust you at the beginning and how much they believe in the way you do, but if you don't produce the number, then they must say, hey, no, they don't trust you anymore. So it's not always a number. Sometimes it's, the improvement that you can feel in the environment, and people are happier and clients happier. So sometimes, depends on the situation. For a lot of time, the situation is like for courier companies, for example, their revenues in 6 months didn't change at all, because they struggle with there's not so many in the middle of lockdown. Nothing changed at all, but they save a lot of money in terms of cost. So they still get better benefit, even the revenue doesn't grow.
Even when the business is flatlining, they're still performing so much better that the profits are still coming to the shareholders.
Right, awesome. So thank you for this. One question that is actually a spin-off that you mentioned the ESG. How is ESG doing in Asia and New Zealand? Is it
Environmental, social, and governance issues? I don't think it's very big at all.
Yeah.
It's very much a European and to a lesser extent American thing.
okay?
Not so many people talking about it in our part of the world.
All right. Okay. Thanks. I'll sit quiet now and please allow the audience to ask questions. I don't want to jeopardize.
It might change their minds a bit as the environment starts hammering them harder and harder. Coming.
Yeah, so I was sort of wondering, how do you see yourself sustainability fit into what you're doing? Do you see more space for that coming up in the future?
Yes, I think so. People are more aware of being, they need to change. Yeah, and more, the more the wars change quick, the VUCA war, it changed so quick. So they have to adapt to be able to adapt with the situation, right? And so that's why they have to become agile. It's so obvious to anyone, because a lot of people say no, we don't need to change, but they know what's coming. So I think it's not only, it's not this kind of thinking. It's not the future. It's the present. Yeah.
Does that answer your question, or were you asking about Teal unicorns specifically?
Both, I think. I sort of see a lot of sustainability initiatives staying on that reporting angle, so that ESG, and we talk about it. And I just don't see a lot of it permeate to some of the things that we're either doing or some of the lenses that we now have when we look at the work. So if it's Teal unicorn, I would just love to know how you both look at that and what you'd like to explore in the future on this topic.
So there's the one angle to this that's really interesting, is that Vietnam is still one of the 3 most repressive regimes on earth. And we have to be very careful to stay out of politics in Vietnam. But, I've said to Cherry that in a way, the work we're doing is much more subversive than anything we could do politically, because we're promoting social values that are so advanced around diversity and inclusion and empowerment and liberation and inversion of power structures. It's all good communism, right? It's all we're great socialists, and we do a whole lot of work in family. We write books about family, and we run webinars, and we're probably more famous, and way more famous in Vietnam for the books we write about raising families than we are for our business books. So we're working really hard to inject modern ideas of parenting and couples and relationships into Vietnam as well, as sort of a non-profit arm of Teal Unicorn. And so we're doing a lot to advance that culture into understanding not necessarily the environmental issues per se. I mean, that's not our thing, but the social and governance side of it, absolutely.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and some of my clients, they start doing things like reduce carbon, they're changing like into waste papers, and they do really. We care about it, and we promote a lot of idea in terms of new ways of working, also how we care about not only society but also environment, the planet. Yeah, and it's crazy to some people at the beginning because they, it for them is still surviving mode, right? They still need to survive first, and environments later. But nowadays we care more about it, and it's really become serious, especially for companies with people who are like under 13, 30, sorry, under 30. People care a lot about it.
The new generation.
Yes, new generation.
They might even do something about the pollution in Hanoi. So.
I love how you've created like a little bit of a Trojan horse for some of the material, because you have to navigate this environment in a country that is different. Wonderful. So I don't want to take up too many questions, but I was also really wondering, in 10 years' time, when you're in your camper and you're traveling New Zealand, what would you hope that you look back on?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I think one of our dream is to have more and more companies will become happier companies, where people who work in, or in my kids' generation, our kids' generation, they're proud to be in those organizations. So that's really what, they're happy and they're proud to be a part of those organizations. So that's our dream.
So better organizations, yeah. And one of the guys who influences me, well, the people who influence me as a guy, is Gene Kim, who's an IT author. And in an interview, he said, they asked, what drives you? Because he's wealthy, he has no need to work. He said, I want to make the lives of 1 million IT people better. And I think he's probably come close to achieving that. So, the better lives in the middle of our motto, as well as improving the culture of the organizations and making them better organizations within the society. I'll look back with satisfaction on the employees who had a better work life and worked in environments that were psychologically safe and that valued them and that allowed them to flourish, and families too. I get great rewards seeing teenagers have better lives with their parents, and so looking back on a large number of those will be satisfying as well. I think that we're saying the same thing from different lenses, looking back at the difference we made, I think.
So in the family's angles, that we have 2 books together with our kids as well, 2 boys. A lot of parents told me that they changed a lot, and since they read the book or they read whatever we wrote or they participate in the webinars we share with the communities, they change the way they are the parents, and they feel like their kids be better, and they have more freedoms, and they're much happier. So I think that's a really big reward for us. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
It might be a lovely note to end on, Pieter.
Exactly. This is like, Maria, thank you for your questions. I think it's really like a nice place to park today's meeting. And so
Unless anyone else is the burning one, but I think that sounds lovely.
unless there is some other questions, I'm very happy to park here. Thank you for the journey, everybody, tonight. Very, very valuable for me. let me just invite you for next episodes of the Future of Work Talks, also with very interesting guests, and stay in touch. Thank you very much, Cherry and Rob.
Thank you so much. Have
Have a safe
good
journey home
evening.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
you.
See
Journey
you.
home.
Bye bye.
Thank